Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast. This week we are chatting with fine art photographer Chrystofer Davis on the importance of documenting your community. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast, a weekly podcast for those who believe that moments matter most and that a beautiful photo is more than just a sum of its settings. A show for those who want to do more with the gear they have to take better photos today. And now, your host, Raymond Hatfield.
Hey, welcome back. It is good to see you this week. We got a great episode for you that, left me feeling rejuvenated about photography and ready to just get out and start shooting my own local communities. And I know that you're probably going to be leaving feeling the same way as well, especially after you see some of Chris's work. So if you have a moment, feel free to head over to the show notes of this episode where I posted some of Chris's work as well as links to his Instagram and his website as well for you to check it out. Again, it's going to leave you rejuvenated and ready to just get out and shoot. But first, I want to ask you a question. When you go out and shoot, do you shoot for yourself, like street photos, landscape type stuff? Do you shoot for clients? Do you shoot for your own family? Who do you shoot for? I would love to know. Or maybe it's other businesses as well. No matter what you shoot or who you shoot for, I can tell you from personal experience that CloudSpot is one of my favorite tools for photographers. CloudSpot is an online client gallery where you can share your mini session photos with the families, with your clients. You can share landscape photos with potential art buyers. You can share a portfolio with another business who you are potentially shooting for, or you can create a portfolio just to share with family and friends. And also, it works great for family and friends as well. I can't tell you how many times I've gone out with family, with friends, and took a bunch of photos. And then afterwards, of course, they're always asking for the photos. And CloudSpot is just one of the best ways that I have found to be able to deliver that. It is just super easy, way better than something like a Dropbox or a Google Drive that is definitely, it's made for sharing files, but it is not made for sharing photos. It's a much better experience on CloudSpot. And what I love about CloudSpot is that, it's made by photographers for photographers, and they do everything. You can sell your photos. You can embed your CloudSpot store on your own website. So if you have a website already and you want to sell your photos and maybe your website host doesn't have that built in, or it's kind of confusing, or you don't want it fragmented, well, guess what? You can just do that within CloudSpot. That is huge. Within CloudSpot, you can also make apps like a photo gallery app. So I cannot tell you how much my couples love this when I deliver their gallery of images as well as an app with those same images as well, so that they have one-click access on their home screen of their phone, as well as watermark control. So you can upload photos without a watermark. CloudSpot will automatically add your watermark to the photos while they're viewing them, but then once they download them, the watermark will be removed to help keep your photos safe, as well as an album builder. Let your clients build their own albums, or you can build one for them. Massive stuff. Again, all designed by photographers, specifically for you, a photographer. So if you want to check it out, again, I use CloudSpot. I love CloudSpot. You can sign up for CloudSpot for free. If you're not ready for a paid plan, you can sign up and use it absolutely for free by heading over to try.cloudspot.io/BPP for Beginner Photography Podcast. Again, that is try.cloudspot.io/BPP for Beginner Photography Podcast. You're going to love it. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and get on into today's interview with Chrystofer Davis. Again, so Chris is going to mention it, but I actually found Chris on Glass. And Glass, if you're unaware, is a new photo sharing platform for photographers. So once Instagram kind of came out and said, once they came out and said that they are no longer a photo first platform and that they are focused on entertainment, and the most entertaining media being uploaded to Instagram being videos, they're going to be focusing on videos. That's when I thought, okay, well, I no longer have any use for Instagram. Found Glass, very fun app. Right now it is for iPhone only, and next week I will be actually interviewing one of the co-founders of Glass. So if you're on the fence, if you're interested, check it out. Again, iPhone only for the time being, and then come back next week where I'm going to have an interview. But anyway, regardless, some amazing photographers on glass. That's why I found Chrystofer. His work is just very compelling. I had to reach out to him, obviously, and get him on the podcast. So today we're talking about the importance of documenting your community and why it is so important, because we all live in this place. Why not take some pretty cool photos of it, right? So again, I really think that you're going to like this one. So with that, let's go ahead and get on into this interview right now with Chrystofer Davis. When I look at your photos, I see a few things. One of them is I see the connection that you have with people, and I can tell that there's a strong sense of trying to figure out who somebody is within that photograph. I can sense the interaction that you have with them, and I think that that's really compelling to look at, and I think that that's really hard to achieve in photography. So before I figure out how you do achieve that and how you kind of got there, tell me where it all started. How did you get into photography?
Well, I just feel like for me, photography, it started off at a very early age. Just going out with my parents, on vacation. But there was this one specific moment where, we were in the Bahamas, we were in Nassau, and we took a water taxi into, I think it was New Providence. I think that's the city that's in downtown Nassau.
Mm-hmm.
And, my mom, she had a Fujifilm disposable camera, I would take on the trip and take photos. And me being a kid, I was like, you know what, I want to, take a few photos. So I asked her for the camera, taking very, childish like shots, getting the water, getting across, like the city area. But it was this one specific moment, that I knew I wanted to be a photographer. So if I can, kind of, make you kind of see, what was happening. So in the water taxi, there's an upstairs area. We were just downstairs, right? So I'm like approaching the stairway to get like upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look up, I see like this perfect composition of like this stairway and towards the opening, and then you can see the actual sun that like it was in the middle. So without like any kind of like knowledge of like how to take, this well composed photo, I actually get down on one knee and like, tilt the camera up, and then, I just perfectly centered it, just the stairway, the opening, and the sun darkly in the middle. And I took that shot, and something just like in me knew that I wanted to do this, which was like really crazy. It just sticks with me because I knew that was a very important moment in my life that I want to get into photography. And then a few years down the line, I was really into drawing. Watched a lot of anime, read manga, the whole entire thing. But it wasn't until I got to my senior year of high school that I was with my social studies teacher. We had a free period, and he actually brought me over to his desk, and he just whipped out a Canon 5D. He said, you know what, I want you to go around and take some photos of the students, the staff, so we can compose it, the images for the yearbook. And he was a pretty, well-versed photographer and music video director. He showed me like a bunch of his stuff, and it was really, really nice. But the fact that, he randomly just gave me the camera in this particular moment, when I went around, I took shots of everybody, and ended up seeing it in the yearbook. I just knew from there, like, I want to pursue photography professionally.
Wow. Let me ask, do you still have that photo, the stair photo with the sun in it? Do you still have that somewhere?
You know what? I cannot find that picture. I know the negatives are around in my parents' house. If I can find that image, I may just cry, because that was like a very important moment for me. Like I said, it's burned in my memory.
Yeah, that is hilarious. I have a similar memory, and I'm just like you. I'm like, I have to find that photo. I took it when I was like 7 or something. I was like, I gotta find it. And it's just so hard. They just get so lost. But can you tell me how old were you when you took that photo? Did you say?
I had to be like maybe 8 or 9, or maybe even younger, maybe 7.
Okay. So there's 10, 12 years before you became a senior, and you were talking with a social studies teacher, and he gave you that camera. So in between that time, lots of, I guess, creative ideas were coming to you, whether it be through drawing or through reading like graphic novels and whatnot. When you got the camera, when you got that 5D and you just went around taking photos, looking back now, do you think that there was any sort of creative eye? Do you think that there was any sort of visual eye when you went to go take those photos, or were you just so focused on I just got to take these photos, I don't even care There was no attention to composition or anything like that? Or can you tell me how that went for you? I'm sorry, that was a
Well,
long drawn out question and it was not fully formed. So if you could pick something out of that, I'd be
no,
amazed.
no, it's perfectly fine. I mean, getting the camera, you know, it's like he's put me on assignment. So it's like, all right, you got to get the students, you got to get the staff, and I pretty much just went around, looking for that, and it was just I was just so excited just to have the camera. I wasn't thinking about composition or or any of that stuff. I mean, prior to him giving me the camera, like my parents, they did give me like an HP point and shoot
Okay, yeah.
that I would just mess around with, but it wasn't something I would take seriously. It was just like, okay, like I'm not a photographer, I'm just somebody who has a camera at this moment. But in the moment I had the 5D, I felt like I was an actual photographer, and I had people pose for me. I'll take the portraits, get some landscape portraits. And like I said, it was just all for the excitement and just the doing and just the capturing. Like I
Sure.
wasn't thinking about the technicalities. I just wanted to do it because it was enjoyable, and it brought me some kind of peace. It's like I didn't want to sit in the classroom, this whole entire time and not do anything. But the fact that I'm partaking, in this art form of photography, that my teacher allowed me to do, like I was just happy.
Of course. Yeah. Now, if you could go back and you could look at some of those photos, what would be some of those like amateur mistakes that you would pick out that you probably did?
I mean, I can't really remember some of the photos. I mean, I may have been like zoomed out a bit and I got too much of the background area and
Mm,
not really focus on like the headroom and just like really centering, you know, the people who were my subjects like in those particular photos.
gotcha.
And like I said, it's really like it was just like really just like my early just like infancy
Yeah.
like in my photography.
So it was the
So
experience that really stood out to you, not so much the photographs in that moment.
right. So
Okay.
nothing like sparked any kind of, inspiration. It was just the fact that I had a camera, and I'm able to just take these pictures, and I'm pretty sure everything was on a program.
Uh-huh.
So like it was no technical, skill behind those images.
Sure. So when did it change for you? When did you start shooting photography with intention?
Um, so it's like a long and drawn out story. So pretty much in college, I went to go try and study photography. It was at Bloomfield College in Bloomfield, New Jersey. But right when I was coming in, it was like 2009. Uh, Pretty much they were canceling that program,
Hmm,
and then I was like, you know what, the next best thing I can do is video. So, while I'm on campus, and I feel like this kind of helps me out, with the work that I'm doing today, is that, I would just sit around like the campus, like the quad, like the open area where
yeah.
everybody, walks through, we go to the library, go to get some lunch. And, I'll see some people that, I'm friends with, I'll go out and take their photos and kind of just document them. Or even just some people that I don't know, they see me with a camera, and I ask like, hey, it's okay if I can, take some photos of you. They'll be cool and down with it. I even organized a day where I would invite people to come to the quad and take photos. So that was
Nice.
just a way of me just like introducing myself and saying like, hey, like I just want to document you guys and and put it on my blog spot. And you can go get your photos there. And I feel like that kind of gained a little bit more of my popularity. Um, I joined a fraternity, and some of the guys that were there, they were graphic designers. And I was able to collaborate with them and work on projects with them. And it wasn't until a friend of mine, he actually had I want to say an internship at Fubu with Damon John,
Hmm.
and they said, hey, we need a photographer and videographer to to capture these moments. So I was able, work particularly in the industry on an internship, and that kind of just like grew my career just in the industry space. Doing commercial shoots, music videos, and I feel like what really pushed me off into the work that I'm doing now is that in between those times where I'm not doing commercial works, the camera was sitting, and I was like, hey, like, I want to put together a shoot, but there's just like no inspiration at this particular moment. I have, this big Canon, SLR, and I just wanted to do something a bit different. So 2015, 2017, or 2016, I tried shooting film. And it was with like a lomography fisheye camera.
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, let me try to go back to the origins, kind of like how photography used to be, just by shooting the celluloid film. And then from there, I failed. I went to CVS to try to get some roles developed, and they said, hey, so there's nothing on there, and that kind of crushed me.
They said that? CBS said, hey, there's nothing on here?
CVS told me that there's nothing on these photos here, and like I said, it really crushed me because I'm thinking, like I'm a really good photographer, and it just hurt my spirit, And I was like, you know what, I'm going to abandon film. I don't need it. I have my digital camera. I could take a bunch of photos, but it was just that itch,
Yeah.
that poke that was to me, that was poking at me, saying like, hey, you need to try this again. Like even though you failed, you need to try again. So along the lines, 2017, I pick up a Canon, the Canonet rangefinder,
Hmm.
and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to write down how I'm you know putting my aperture, the shutter speed, and what ISO I'm shooting at. And I'm going to take my time, write the notes down, and photograph. And so lo and behold, I'm on the street now. I'm taking photographs, and as I'm looking back at my images, I'm saying like, hey, this is kind of like documentary style of like what I'm doing. Like I'm capturing these particular moments. And for me, being in the city of Newark, it's changed, over time. I'm starting to see a lot of the establishments that I used to, patronize. They're starting to, wither away and, be torn down, and new developments go up. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this time out to, try to document these moments of, how Newark is right now. And I remember this one moment. I was like, you know what? I want to try street photography. I want to try to get out there and, photograph people on the street, and kind of break that fear of just like the unknown and not knowing like who this person is. But I think that, they're documentary worthy.
Yeah.
And, I took a photo of this interesting gentleman. He had like a bunch of tattoos on his face, and he was just like on a corner. And I was like, hey, it's okay if I can, take, a portrait of you. I really like the tattoos are on your face. And the first thing that he asked me was like, are you the police? And I was like, no, no, no. I was like, I'm a photographer. I did a commercial with, Puma, and I'm referencing all the great things that I did to kind of, bring his tension down to like, why are you doing this? But I just want to show him that I like photography, and I think that he's documentary worthy, and he was like, sure, no problem. And then he sits up like I guess like one of this the traffic light changer, and
Okay.
basically take like a nice photo of him, and I feel like that was just the start of like where I'm at today, going out and documenting Newark and the people who are here.
Wow. First of all, so much to dig into in that story right there. From the film, strangers, portraits, documentary, and even Newark right there, which I know is very important to you. Um,
Mhm.
so to start, I guess let's kind of continue on with that progression first. I want to keep diving into the film because first of all, I gotta say, I'm willing to bet that the high school kids who worked at CVS probably screwed up your role and that it wasn't you. That's my guess, but whatever. I can't imagine that it'd be anything different. When it comes to the shooting on the film, though, and you decided to keep going, I know that that's very common to teach photography, like, and start off with film photography because that's the
Right.
most basic. You have to learn, manual. You have to shoot aperture, ISO, shutter speed. You got to get in all those things. But then we kind of get to a point to where a lot of people say, "Wow, this is a ton of work. I think I'm just going to
Mhm.
stick with my digital camera." You, however, have decided to go the opposite way, even investing, I know, heavily into Leica and like really getting into film photography. So,
Yeah.
t- uh, tell me why. What is it that film gives you today that that digital doesn't?
I just feel like for me, it's definitely just the overall feel and look of film. I like the fact that I can go back and I can pick up a negative and have something tangible within my hands that I can just like easily store away, because I can remember, if we go back to the stories of, me going to high school, getting into photography, that I feel like by then I did have a Canon Rebel, and I was going around, doing some street shots of Newark, like very amateurish. And, as I saved those images on on an older laptop, those images were gone. And we're talking about like a year's worth of work and how pretty much like a decade ago of how Newark used to be. And
Yeah.
I cannot retrieve that, whatsoever. So I feel like if you ask me now how I feel about film, it's really just more so like for the documentary, purpose and archiving history. Because I can easily pick up a digital camera, take some excellent photos, but who's to say that my laptop or my hard drive will still survive within the next 10 years? Like we
Hmm.
always upgrade like our computers and all these different things. Like everything is always like a software update, and I just really use film right now for just archival purposes. Like I really want my images to outlive me.
Hmm.
So I know that some people, they'll, now like if they'll, get into film, they'll do it for the aesthetic or for the look, because film photos do look good,
Yes.
and I feel like now, like in my career, I'm kind of like past that. So now it's like I really want to document these moments, and I really want to just make sure that I have these archived in a physical space to where I can just store it. And if 20 years from now I want to pull it out, I can still do it.
Hmm. How much harder is that? Because I know, with digital photos, I can tag my photos, I can put them in certain folders and whatnot. But for you, your photos are kept in the same roll that it was shot with. So how do you
Mhm.
how do you go about organizing your negatives?
Well, pretty much like that. After I shoot, I develop. I let them dry. I actually have like these archival sheets that are right here.
Hmm.
I mean, I know it's like a podcast, but you can just imagine just the actual
It goes on
the
YouTube. People
negatives.
can see it. Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be on YouTube. Oh, awesome. So yeah, I go ahead, I sleeve it in. I'll say, okay, this is the location, the month and year, and the camera I use, the developer, the film, and it's like for each sheet of negatives that I have, I can go back and just like relive those moments and say like, oh, I remember this particular moment. Oh, I know exactly why I want to take those photos. And for this instance, I can really just go through years of work. Like I've shot film since 2017, so I can actually go back to those negatives and like bring those up. I put images from 2017 in my books, and I just feel like it's just a really good way just to have your images there. Like I said, rather than put up to a cloud. Let's say if the cloud's hard drive goes and you miss everything. That's pretty much it. I mean, it is a lot of hard work. I do put a lot of my stuff in binders, and I try to flip through them and look through those moments. But I really feel like in the long term, like in the long run, it's worth it
Sure.
because,
Sure.
uh, like I said, if you know about the story of Vivian Meyer,
Yes.
her work, she stored everything. I feel like she barely developed anything, but the fact that we're able to pull up these images from the 50s and 60s and see exactly what was happening around Chicago, New York, or wherever she traveled. It's really amazing that you can resurrect these things just off of a tangible, strip of film.
Right, right. For those listening who don't know, Vivian Meyer was a nanny for for some
Mhm.
kids. She just loved to take photos. I don't even think her closest friends knew that she was a photographer, and she would
No.
just take photos on the street of life, and then she would just hold on to these rolls of film. And like you said, some of them wouldn't even get developed, and it wasn't even until like what 2016 or 2006 or something like that where somebody found
Yeah.
this case of all these like rolls of film and went through it and was just amazed.
I'm just blown away.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, and I wonder about things like that too because there is that sense of discovery. Not only like if you're the photographer and you're shooting film, because that's exciting when you develop it and you're like, whoa, like I got one here, like that is awesome.
Hmm.
But to go through somebody else's work has got to be incredible, and I wonder if legitimately if that's going to be a thing in the future with digital because kind of you didn't specifically say this, but it's like there's always, changing ports, like USB ports. Who knows if we'll even be using USB in the future? Who knows if we'll be able to connect different file systems and hard drives to whatever's coming, And I just don't know. And I do think about that. Like, what is the future going to hold for the safety of our photos? But yeah, negatives are something that, like, if you can hold it in your
Right.
hand, you got it.
I even I often reflect back on a photographer here in Newark. His name was Akintola Hanif, and even Jamel Shabazz. They actually keep their digital photos on a CD,
Oh wow,
which I found, which is like
that sounds scary.
yeah, it's like it's on a CD, but I totally understand like the archival purpose of it, like having something physical to put away, because you can, maybe get like I'm not even sure how much memory a CD can hold at this point, maybe a gigabyte or two,
My
if
computer
that.
hasn't had a CD drive for like 4 years, so I don't even know, man. It's been forever
Yeah,
since I've had a
the
CD.
fact that the fact that you can resurrect images from a CD is amazing as well. But I
Yeah.
mean, even because I know like right now with photographers, it's like film versus digital, but at the same time, it's like I feel like it's social media, digital space versus like printing
Hmm.
your photos, and it's like if you're not printing your photos, like your images will most likely be gone like forever. Like
Yeah.
it's important to print your images. Like even if you take a picture on your phone and then you go out and print it, you'll be able to have that memory and resurrect that, and you can easily store that away. And I've just been on the the journey of just consistently printing my work,
Hmm.
whether if it's in like a physical book or an actual print. I'm just really big on just printing my work right now.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Super excited to get into that. But I kind of have a two-part question here. One
Okay.
being is that you are very deep and very passionate about where you live, Newark, New Jersey, about
Mhm.
documenting your community and going out and as you said earlier, like capturing it as it is today, because who knows how it's going to change in the future. So first of all, I love that. So when it comes to the documenting process, let's say that you're out, you see somebody, they make an impact on you, like this man with the tattoos, right? You go ahead and take
Mhm.
a photo of them. After that photo's developed, how does that work go back into the community and go back to provide and enhance Newark, New Jersey?
So in some cases, with my work, it is candid as well as it's formal. It's I take portraits of people. I just like for me, if the person has impacted me on my life and they shared their story with me and I feel connected to them, I will go to the dark room and make them a silver gelatin print, or if they want something like super quick, I'll get a little jet printer and I'll give them a print. It One of the, I guess, people that definitely kind of impacted me as far as like my work and like hearing their stories, a man named Sydney. He actually runs a vendor stand off a broader market, and I was able to, take a few days and just like really just like sit with him and just like talk to him, learn more about his life and what he's been going through. And it's just like I feel like throughout the years of my life, I've always like walked past him, but I've never really had the chance to like really connect with him and like really talk to him. And seeing that he shared his life story with me and his ups and downs, being a vendor in Newark like since the 90s. Now I
Wow.
went ahead and I printed a picture for him and I framed it, and he was just like really happy about that, and he just like, what, like we don't normally get photos from other people. It's like we're always on our cell phones, like he says that he has like pictures of his dad, and like who had passed away recently, he's the baby of his family, and he really loves his dad. So he doesn't like he can't even pull up those photos. He doesn't have like any other like physical photos of his dad in
Uh,
his house, But the fact that he now has a physical portrait of him, I remember just walking randomly, to him like the next day after he already had it up on his stand. He's like, yeah, like picture of me, and he's really happy about that. Even in some of my books, he's actually in the books, and he's like, what, I gave him a book for free because I was like, like I really appreciate you for like letting me document you and including you in this particular project. And he said, what, I definitely want to patronize you, so I want to buy at least like 5 books, to give some of my family and friends. And
wow.
yeah, this is
That's a
like the
good
power of
feeling.
photography, and just show people that that they're important, that they're beautiful, that they should be proud of who they are and where they're from.
Hmm.
And actually, that really is just like the work that I'm about, because um, throughout my years living in Newark, people have talked down about Newark. They talk about the ills and the bad things that may happen here. But I feel like through my growing up, like of course I've seen those negatives, but I've seen a lot more positives. whether if it, it was like my social studies teacher giving me his camera, or like I actually joined the JROTC in my high school. Those were, positive people who are in my life, and even like the mayor of Newark, Ross Baraka, like he was my principal in high school.
Wow.
He would always, have these fun rallies and get, kids to march out and speak about, like the important things that matter to them. And those are all the important, like I said, those are all the positive things that I've seen in Newark. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, if you're going to try to find evidence in anything that you want to find, like you'll find it. Like if you want to see the good in something, like you will find it. If you want to see the bad in something, you will find it.
Yeah.
So I
Oh man.
chose, to take hold of this narrative and, really show the positives that are here in Newark.
That's deep, man. I got to think about that for a minute, because one thing that I think about a lot is that oftentimes from hearing from new photographers, they'll say something like, I want to tell the story of my family, or I want to tell the story of this little town that I live in, or I want to tell the story of, whatever it is. But they frame it in such a way that it almost feels overwhelming. Like Newark, New Jersey is not a small place. And I'm sure that if you were to
Right.
say, like, I want to document Newark, New Jersey, that to me feels almost overwhelming. But it sounds like from what you're saying here is that you're taking a personal approach. Is that
Mm-hmm.
you're saying, look, if I can just impact one person, that's gonna snowball. That's gonna domino into making this whole place better. So rather than documenting everything all at once and trying to do, I don't know, like a best of type thing, you're taking that humanistic approach and like, here, I'm gonna sit down with this vendor who's been here since the 90s, who I've walked by every day. I want to learn about him, and I want to tell this man's story because this man is Newark, New Jersey, is what it sounds like. And I hate to be
Right.
putting words in your mouth here, but this is what I'm hearing, and this sounds fantastic. Am I far off base here? Or does this sound?
No, I feel like you're hitting it right on the head. It's like anytime, I see somebody, that's here in Newark, and they're living in here in the space, and they're, like I said, with Sydney, he's been around. He's seen, a lot of people grow up here in Newark. Like I said, he's seen a lot of the good. He's seen a lot of the bad. And it's like, what? Why not capture him? He's been here. He's a part of this culture.
Mm-hmm.
He is a part of the culture of Newark. Whenever you go downtown, you're going to see a vendor. Whether they're selling socks, hats, belts, a bus pass, incense, oils, honey. It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I think of Newark, like I think of Sydney.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
like I said, I think of my social studies teacher. I think of, like I said, the being in high school and all these different things that come about. And even with film, I know a lot of people don't know this about film in general, because when you think of film, right, and its origins and its history, who do you think of?
Probably Kodak, Fuji. Yeah.
Right. So whenever people think of, Kodak being like the first, like, I guess, manufacturer of film, and they were like the first to commercialize it, but really, celluloid film was actually birthed in Newark,
Mm.
in an attic.
In an attic.
Yes, by Reverend Hannibal Goodwin. He's the one who invented celluloid film. And he pretty much manufactured it to, to pretty much help his teachings, like in the Bible, because he would teach children, so he would want to, put some images in this actual celluloid film for the kids to actually look at, just to enhance his teachings.
Wow.
And for me, I'm kind of using celluloid film as like, for good, just like he was trying to do. And I just feel like being from Newark and shooting film, it's like it's kind of like a pride thing. Like, this thing here was actually made in the city that I'm from.
Oh,
So it kind of
geez.
like with what I'm doing, like it's just further enhancing it, So, and like I said, and I try to encourage other photographers from Newark to get into film. So I actually work with a nonprofit organization called the Newark Print Shop. They actually have a dark. So I actually teach, people of all ages how to shoot film, develop film, and make silver gelatin prints. Because I feel as though the city needs its own dark. I know that's something that we're consistently. I think that they're consistently promoting now, but it's just like for me, like on a personal level, like I really want to, interact with people and get them to try this particular medium,
Of
because
course.
even though Newark is an artist centric city, not a lot of people here are introduced to the arts. So whenever I'm going out, I'm taking photos, like I'm showing them, the like, I'm putting it in their hands, for them to, look at it and say like, oh, like, this is pretty cool. Like, how exactly do you do this? So, yeah, like I just try to do that to just encourage them
Mm-hmm.
and just to get them open about it.
Let me ask you a question about that photo that you took of Sydney. So obviously you had to learn a little bit about who he is. You learned about
Mhm.
his background and what he has seen just in his time living in Newark. When you had decided, I got to take a portrait of this man, like this is fantastic. What elements were you looking for to build that photo? What was going to make this a Chrystofer Davis photo, I guess, if you will? Like what was gonna put your signature on that photo for him?
Well, whenever I get into a situation where I want to compose a photo of somebody, I'm just letting them be them. I may have different elements of like what makes them them. I think the first photo that I actually took of him it was definitely during the pandemic, and he had a mask on that had his father's face on there
Whoa.
and him. And so I really just wanted to just like document that of him, like even like when he was telling me the story of his dad, like, he actually, shed one tear,
Mm.
because he said, like, I guess it's just like the memory of just being with his dad or, and it's the fact that I think he didn't really get a chance to like see him when he passed. It was like it's like I think his dad texted him. He didn't get a chance to text him back, and then he called him the next morning. He found out that he
Oh,
like passed away, So, um, yeah, so like it I could really tell like his father was important to him. So I just wanted to take that actual image of like a portrait of his face with the mask on. With it says it was like a portrait of him and said like me and my dad or something like that. And I just want to like memorialize that because
mm-hmm.
I just feel like for the people that are really important to you, like I kind of just want to include them. And even if like the other shots that we always do, I got a picture of him in front of his stand. And and like I said, just going back to that story of him, being a vendor, since the '90s and really being a staple in Newark, I feel like those two elements were important.
Yeah.
Because even though, there's a bunch of photographers, here in Newark, I feel like sometimes some of the people who actually kind of get overlooked is because you always see them. Whenever you're in your city or your town, you walk through it, 1,000 times a day. You feel like, oh, it's all the same. Like there's nothing here that's different, But every day is different. And like I said, there are new people. There are some people who have always been there, but you have never had the courage to speak to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt as though it's like, why am I consistently walking past him? Like, why I should get to know him. I want to support him. I want to patronize him because I just want to get to know the person.
Mm-hmm.
I just really feel like it just takes that that instinct just to figure out like, okay, I just want to get to know this person. I see them here. They've been here since I was a kid. Like, why don't I just introduce myself? I feel like that's the biggest thing with whenever you're doing street photography or documentary photography. Because most photographers, they may come up and say, hey, is it okay, if I can take your portrait? But it's like the person who you're trying to take a picture of, they don't know who you are. So they're like, who is this person trying to ask me? So whenever I'm going up, to ask to take a photo, I'm introducing myself, say, hey, my name is Chrystofer, a documentary photographer, and most of the times I'll have a physical copy of work, on me to show them that, what I do. Because, in this particular age, everybody has a camera in their phone, on their cellular device, and
Sure.
we're always taking pictures. But I think to this day, sometimes like people feel as though like photography is weaponized in a bit to shame them or like to
Yeah.
to just to make them look bad. So I just try to approach it as if like well, that I'm actually telling the truth that I'm not here to exploit you, but to show that you're beautiful and you're a great person.
Sorry, I had to write that down. That's a really interesting thought there about, because I think you're right. Whenever somebody, I think that's probably the biggest fear for new photographers, right? On top, aside from actually having to like ask a stranger to take their
Mhm.
photo, but then being met with a no, why are you doing this? And then suddenly feeling like the thing that we love as photography is makes us the weirdo. Like we're going to use these photos, like you
Right.
said, to weaponize them or something like that. That is a really interesting thought to come up with. So when you find somebody on the street who you find interesting, who you want to talk to, or you want to take their photograph, let's say, I mean, are the people who you typically photograph, they are just hanging out, like you said? I think earlier you said that you were at a festival today, or are they walking? Are they busy? And if so, how do you approach that situation when somebody's clearly moving from somewhere to another?
Well, definitely, sometimes like I'll like raise my camera. I say, hey, so, it's okay if I can, take your photo. Sometimes they'll be like, yeah, sure, and
Hmm.
they'll keep going about their day and I'll photograph them. There's been a few people downtown Newark, they may have had suits on, so they're feeling like really good about themselves.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're feeling good, it's like you want to kind of make them feel good as well. Say, hey, like you look sharp today. It's okay if I can, make your photo. And I'm like, sure, they'll give a nice pose, and I just really feel like you have to have great energy whenever you're going out to photograph somebody,
Hmm. Hmm.
because somebody can definitely feel like if you're kind of tense or like they're a bit unsure about your energy, like like this person looks a bit sketchy. Why do they have a camera? And
Yeah.
so it's almost like you sometimes you gotta have it. You definitely have to have a smile.
Hmm.
You gotta smile. You gotta be energetic. You gotta have enthusiasm. Whenever you're going out and photographing, because people can tell off the back if you're tense or if like you're a bit nervous, and that makes them nervous.
Of
So
course.
you definitely want to make sure you have great energy. But most of the time, like I said, I approach people with a smile. I'll compliment something, about like their clothing, and I'll say, hey, it's okay if I can, take your photo. You look great today. Sometimes I will get those no's, but after building rapport with them and getting to know them a bit, I've turned a lot of no's into yeses.
Mm.
So now it becomes a collaboration
Mm.
in a sense, and now they feel good about it. And it's always good, to get their Instagram, social media, or like an email address to send them out the photo. I've even been in cases where I've had an Instax camera with me or Polaroid camera, and I'll take a photograph of them and I'll send them off with a Polaroid. I even carry extra copies of my book, um, just in case they may want like a little something for them to go, because oftentimes we take their photos and then we move on our way.
Yeah.
But it's good to like leave a part of you with them, just for them to see that the work that you're doing, to
Hmm.
kind of make a memory of that.
So if you're shooting on film, that can be a difficult thing. So when you said that you bring your Instax camera with you, so are you doing both? You're taking one, say on the M6, and then one with the Leica, or I'm sorry, and then one with the Instax, and then you hand them the Instax photo. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Or sometimes I show them that, hey, I actually am shooting on film, so it may take some time for me to get you the photo, and then like they'll totally understand. But they're like, okay, like that's old school. Like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. I love how
You
you
know,
did the motion of like turning the camera around. Like, look, there's no screen here. There's nothing that I
like
can
yeah,
show
like
you.
they're like there's literally nothing behind here. So
That is too funny.
but like I said, they're okay with it.
Yeah, yeah, I would imagine. And I mean, it seems like you definitely have the personality to be able to go up and I feel build rapport with somebody
Yeah,
relatively quickly, especially if it's in
I,
your community that you love. But
yeah.
I'm sure that you struggled with that early
I,
on.
listen, I definitely struggle with that. Like, because even if you look at like a beginner photographer's like film photos, like shooting street, you'll see that they'll get a lot of like people's backs.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's definitely like showing like that you're a bit shy and that you're a bit nervous, in a sense. But you're still trying to gain that confidence of trying to shoot somebody and shoot the environment and shoot what's actually happening in your community. But it really takes courage to be like, hey, like you're looking at this person face on, and then you're going click.
yeah.
You
So
know,
let me ask you then, when you just got started, were you taking a lot of photos of people's backs until I'm assuming this is how it went? You gained the confidence behind the camera, knowing that you could capture a well exposed image. And then
hmm
once you were able to do that, then you started asking people to take their portrait where they were camera aware.
right? It goes back to that first story, the gentleman with the tattoos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have to just sit with myself and say, you know what, I have to embrace that fear,
Hmm.
because I'd rather, have that fear and deal with whatever happens after than to not get the photo at all.
Right, right.
It's sometimes to this day, I still deal with that, but I feel like I still try to take hold of that fear and say, no, I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it just you just have to continuously do it. Like of course you'll get some people who give you, some kind of negative feedback, but at the same time, it's like you just got to know how to just have great energy and say, hey, like I don't mean any harm. I apologize. I don't want to intrude on your day, but I really thought that you look great today, and I just want to just capture you in this particular moment because I feel so that you're important.
Mm-hmm.
And then that can start a conversation and say, hey, like I can see the photo, or if you want me to delete it, that's fine. Like I said, but I don't want to exploit you and
Sure.
make it seem like you're a bad person. So I definitely had. I remember a situation where like I'm this well advanced photographer, and I see a gentleman giving a woman on a haircut on the street. I was like, oh, this is pretty like cool, like but and I introduced myself, and I asked, is it okay if I could take your photo? And immediately, the lady, she went off, and it's almost like it's different from seeing like a person on the outside, and trying to take their photo, but they feel so that you actually see like their inner, like you actually see them.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes like I'm aware of that, like with the cameras, because like whenever you're capturing somebody like on the camera, it's almost like you're capturing their soul.
Yeah.
And so the lady may have felt offended that I asked to take a portrait of her soul, like of who she actually was, instead
Mm-hmm.
of like the outer appearance of her, just getting a nice haircut. Even like her friend on the side was like, her friend on the side was cool. I showed her my book and said, hey, like it's all positives. Like I said, I just want to document Newark because it's going through rigorous changes, and I just want to document the people who are actually here. But like I said, the woman who's getting a haircut, she was,
Said
like I
no.
said, very upset, very
Yeah.
upset that I even asked, in a kind manner too. Like, hey, it's okay, if I could capture this moment. I feel like it's really cool.
How do you diffuse that situation?
Oh no, it's just all apologies. It
Mm-hmm.
says I apologize. I didn't want to intrude, but I thought this was a cool situation, but it's okay. And I left her with a copy of the book too,
Mm-hmm.
just
Oh,
so that way like I don't want to make it seem like I'm like it's not like I really meant to actually make her mad, but it's just like,
sure.
hey, like
And then,
you just want to diffuse the situation. You kind of just want to come down and say, okay, I apologize.
mm-hmm.
Have a great day. Here's a book. Like I said, I apologize. So
And then you just move on after that. Yeah.
yeah, you just move on after that.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, sometimes like when you get those situations where you do get like a hard no, sometimes you feel discouraged. You feel like, oh, like sometimes you just got to take it, bounce back, learn from it, and just. I feel like a lot of times I review my approach to people. Like even in that sense where I was very gentle and I came across very nicely and I came soft, somebody else took it, a different particular kind of way. So you just adjust every time.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of sense the energy of the person when you're approaching them at certain times. But I didn't know the woman would actually just like explode.
Yeah, I guess there's no way to know that. One
Yeah.
of the things that I hear often from photographers as far as like why they're scared to approach people on the street, and like I get a sense of this, right? Our human brains are kind of jerks, and they're always going to look to like what's the worst possible thing that could happen in this situation.
Mhm.
They could yell at us, they could belittle us, they can kick us out of here, whatever it is. So let me ask you, of all the portraits that you've taken of strangers, of the community of people of Newark, New Jersey, what is the worst thing that has happened to you when somebody said no?
I mean, so I don't think there's anything worse to happen to me, like for me asking somebody to take a photo. Because for one, like I'm 6'2" and I'm kind of like stocky, so not a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, do something crazy. However, however, I had my camera on the side, like I had like a point and shoot, I was going about my day, and I'm not sure if you heard about the story about. I got to find the guy's name. I'll send you his information. But he was a former NBA player. He played for the Utah Jazz. He got drafted like out of like Seton Hall University. I'll give you the name. But somewhere along the lines of his actual career, his personal life, he, of course, he was pretty much the victim of like alcohol and drug abuse, and he was
Okay.
living homeless on the streets. So I'm familiar with his face, like, but I didn't really know him or anything like that. But I was like, hey, like that's the former like NBA player. So I had my camera with me, and I was just walking, and then he was like, hey, like, who do you work with? And he's just like screaming. He's like, hey, hey, like, and he's like this big guy that's like 7'2", it's like
Sure.
super big. He's like screaming, and I'm just like, you know what? Just keep face forward, don't even look back,
Uh-huh.
So because like I said, even if you're not doing anything, the fact that like I said, even though Newark is an artist centric city, not a lot of people here are exposed to the arts. Like
Yeah.
it's not normal walking around with a camera and just going on taking photos. Like you may come across that in New York City, it's no problem because it's the most photographed, place on the face of the earth. But for somebody who, is not really caring about the arts or doesn't see people normally walking around with cameras, that can seem intimidating, and they'll automatically just, be
Assume the
triggered
worst.
in some kind of, yeah, assume the
Sure.
worst, that you're trying to, but that was more so in my earlier stages when I didn't know how to approach people and, pretty much build rapport with them.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, like I said, you'll just have some people who just feel offended the fact that you have a camera somewhere.
Mm-hmm. So well, I was really hoping that you were going to say, "Oh, nothing ever bad has happened except for somebody saying no." But I think what I've learned from that answer right there is maybe just think twice about photographing somebody who could be in a compromising situation. Even if you're
Right.
not photographing them, try to think of the human condition and perhaps maybe what they're
Exactly.
going through. Yeah. Oh, that's a yeah. I'm just trying to imagine that situation in my head, and that doesn't sound favorable. So I'm glad that you got out okay for sure.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, I ran track and field, so it's nothing to,
Yeah.
get out of that situation. But and most of the times, like I said, I feel like when I tell people my story about, why I photograph and why I document Newark, it feels kind of close to them because uh, Newark is a very loving city, and it's also like it has a rebellious spirit.
Hmm.
So we're always going to defend Newark, no matter what. So when I tell people that, I have this pride of Newark and that it needs to be documented, and that I need to, control this narrative without, the news and media, talking negatively about the city. Like I want to take this power and, show the positivity.
Hmm.
And all, and when I often explain like what exactly I do, they kind of come down and say, you know what, I respect it because I've actually taken pictures of people, like I'm right here, they'll look at me and I'll go like this, they'll get upset about it, but I'll bring up that story, and I'll show them the photos, and then you know what, they'll be like, I understand, like, and I respect you for doing that.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's a big turnaround right there for sure.
Yeah, because because the fact that you took a photo of them and then now you're approaching them to talk to them, it's different from where you're on the street, you're taking a photo and then you move on.
Hmm.
You, like for me, like I actually took a look at like Gary Winogrand's kind of style.
Okay.
And before I look at a photographer's work, I kind of look at their purpose and their why. And from what I noticed with Gary Winogrand, he said he's not here to make friends with people. He's just here to like to make images. Which that's his own style and his own view. But for me, if I'm taking a photo of somebody, sometimes like I definitely like to get to know you. I like to get to know your story.
Yeah. Same.
And even wow, just when I think about like Jamel Shabazz, he's a very well known photographer for documenting like the '80s in Brooklyn and New York. And I actually had the chance to assist him on a shoot that was here in Newark for
Oh wow.
his veterans project. And from the just pretty much just from the time when I was assisting him, and we actually took a step out on the streets of Newark, and we actually photographed together, which was like a very huge honor for me.
Of course.
And he definitely told me that his biggest regret, from taking those photos back in the '80s of New York City, is not getting into people's stories and not really like getting a chance to talk to them and merge the stories, with those images. But he's saying now from those pictures from the '80s and '90s, it's just like the power of social media. The fact that people are sharing his photos now, and the people who were like babies or like they were in their teenage years from those photos, they're able to come back and tell him those stories now,
Hmm.
which I think is amazing. But
Yeah.
I often try to take those lessons from the older photographers and pretty much tie it into what I'm doing now to learn from their failures, so that way I don't fail in my later stages, whenever somebody's asking me about a particular person I photographed and what their story was like.
That is a powerful story right there. Let me ask you a question
I-
about Leica real quick,
sure.
because Leica is looked at as the crown jewel of photography, right? We look at there we go. We got the M6 right there. Yeah, we got
M6.
it. Just brings a smile to my face when I just say the words M6. Um, I know that there is a lot of film cameras that maybe they're more technologically advanced and they're a whole lot cheaper. So I want to get into the mindset. Why Leica? Why invest into a system that I guess on paper doesn't equal up to something, say like, I don't know. What was the? I think the Nikon F5 or the Nikon F6 was like the last flagship film camera from Nikon. Why invest? Why invest in Leica?
Well, if we go back to the story that about the camera I first started using, which was the Canonet. It's a cheap film camera. It's almost like the Yashica. It just has a fixed lens to it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I wanted to explore the fact that I can change lenses and do all these different kind of things. So now, doing my research of like different like rangefinder cameras, the only thing that comes up is Leica. So being that Leica was like really unaffordable from the time I actually started photography, kept doing research. I shot with a few SLR cameras. I did have a few not Canons, Leica R cameras. They were the SLRs, and I
Mm-hmm.
made some really great images with that. But after telling myself that I'm heavily invested in film right now, and I'm buying a lot of film and learning how to develop, it's like, why not go for the Leica? And I just feel like for me, it's more than just being like a fashion statement or just saying that, oh, I have a Leica. Like it really works well with me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that it doesn't work against me. I find myself in situations where I may have SLR, but it's loud and people can hear me from a mile away, and it's intrusive. To where with the Canon net, you have the shutter speed in front of the lens, along with the focus and the aperture, and that it worked kind of well for me, but it didn't work so great for me. And yeah, the fact that I have my M6 now, I bought it pretty cheap, but it definitely had to go through like a lot of different repairs and whatnot. But I just feel like for me, it's really just a well versed camera. It's very well made, and like I said, I feel like if you ask me to pick out any camera that I take with me on a daily basis, like I'm always picking up the M6.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, and for me, like I didn't really have a lot of photographic inspirations coming up. Like I said, besides like my parents having the camera and my social studies teacher, like nobody really like told me about like Leicas or anything like that. So it's almost just like it was just the journey of me just learning and saying, oh, like this is pretty cool. Like this actually works well,
Yeah.
and I'm learning about all the other different famous photographers who use Leica and yeah. But
It
I
just
just feel
fits
like
you.
it just fits me, and who I am and how I work. It's more than just saying like, oh, like I just have this camera with a red dot and it's overly expensive and it's made in Germany. But yeah, but I just feel like for me, like it's just my camera of choice. And I
Yeah.
love it.
I love what you said there about really trying to I think what I took apart from that was just that like you found a camera that works for you and your style of photography. Where are there's the Canon, there's Nikon, there's Fuji, there's all these different brands, and there's always like a competition against them, which I never truly
Right.
understood. Um, you know, technically one might be better than another, but like I've used some flagship cameras and I've thought this is garbage. Like I would never use this, at a wedding. This is giant. This is massive. I don't want to do this.
Right.
So being able to find that camera that fits in your hand, that works best for you, I think is something that is not talked about enough, or it isn't given enough weight in photography. So
Right.
I appreciate you for sharing that.
No, of
Uh,
course. It's like even when like I've had the Canon DSLRs. Like I said before, like I wasn't getting out as much because I would only use this camera for this particular kind of project. Like it didn't
right.
inspire me to go out and and photograph the streets. And like I said, it was very intrusive. So like if I was to walk with this big DSLR, people look at me like, what does he got this camera for? Like, oh,
Sure.
like I'll just be easily pointed out. But with my Leica, I can go in there, I can take a photo and not be intrusive too. Like even like if I pull up this digital camera here, the Ricoh GR3.
Oh yeah.
Like it just looks like a basic point and shoot, but this is really, a beast of a street camera.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, and people think that you're an amateur. Like, oh,
right.
he's not a professional. He doesn't have the big camera. He's having fun. And I'd rather be invisible that way.
Oh, yeah.
Than to have a big SLR and it's like, hey, he's a professional. Like, what do you take? I would take pictures for.
Yeah, that's something that is I think is an understatement in photography. Figure out what it is that you're trying to shoot and how you're trying to portray yourself is something that people don't think about. Yeah. They just look at the spec sheet, and that's really unfortunate. Well, I know that we are close to the end of our time. We're actually technically over. Do you have time for one more question?
I have a bunch of time.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to be mindful of your time. I got one last question for you, and this is kind of a broad question, I suppose. But as somebody who is, you're spending, a good portion of your life right now to document something that is important to you, being Newark, New Jersey, being the people of Newark, New Jersey. When you become, much older, let's say 60s, 70s, what is it that you want to be remembered for during this period?
Well, I just want to be remembered for, caring for the city when, so many other people, they live here and they don't care about it. And there's people that's outside of this community who don't really care about it either. And just to show that, there are some important figures that are here that make up Newark and that everybody who I put in front of my camera is important. It's more fulfilling for me to, like I said, document, the actual, person living, and breathing in Newark than, if I was to go out and photograph a celebrity or for or doing a campaign for like a sneaker company. The fact that I can memorialize them and document them for the years to come. And, I do have a lot of my work archived in very like highly regarded, institutions like the Metropolitan Museum, the Schomburg. Like I even had an exhibition at the Newark Museum. The fact that, I memorialize them, like I just want to be just remembered for that, just for, caring for the people here in the city of Newark and just caring for the city in general.
Mm. That's beautiful. I don't know how to end it better than that. Chris, before I let you go, can you let people know if they want to see more of your work and learn more about you? Where can they do so? Where can they find you online?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at Dolo_photo. So that's DOLO_FOTO. If you are on Glass, that is also applicable to that platform as well. You can also visit my website, which is chrysdavis.co. That's CHRYSDAVIS.co. And you can find more of my work there. You can find a nice introduction video, and definitely we could connect on Instagram and any other social platforms, and we can talk more.
I told you that you were going to leave feeling rejuvenated about photography and just have an itch to go out and shoot on the street and just talk to those local in your own community and take photos of them. I think my biggest takeaway from this episode here was honestly how Chris's approach to telling one person's story at a time really does kind of tell everybody's story, right? Because each person, we all live in the community, and while we may have different life experiences, we all share the same views of a community, to the point to where when you look at one of his photos, if you're from Newark, New Jersey, you feel an instant connection to that work, and that builds a sense of community. And I think that there's a way where we can all do something similar in our photography, but obviously you just have to figure out what that is for you. I would love to hear your biggest takeaway in the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook community. Feel free to come on in, share it, let me know. Let me know what, again, your biggest takeaway was, because I would love to hear it. So with that, that's it for this week. Until next week, get out, shoot as much as you can, be nice to others, and stay safe. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoy the show, consider leaving a review in iTunes. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.